Hey everybody, today we're going to look at the Digitlist FRQ. This is going to be a 4-part series. This FRQ in particular has a section A and a section B. So we'll have the first 2 parts be a question analysis for A and B, and then parts 3 and 4 will be an answer analysis. Okay, so let's start by reading the question. Part A, write the constructor for the digits class. The constructor initializes and fills the digit list with the digits from the non-negative integer num. The elements in digit list must be integer objects representing single digits and appear in the same order as the digits in num. Each of the following examples shows a declaration of digits objects in the contents of digit list as initialized by the constructor. Okay, so when we take a look at the keywords here, again, they're highlighted. The first thing it says is write the constructor for the digits class. Those clues go together. Okay, we know we need a constructor, but we don't know the name unless you remember that constructors have to have the same name as the class. So there's a clue. The next thing it says is it needs to initialize a list. Initialize is the second part of setting up a variable. The first part is declaring it, so it's already been declared outside of the constructor, but inside the constructor we just need to take the digit list variable and initialize it to be a list of integers. The next thing it suggests to do is to fill the digit list. So this implies that we're actually going to add values to the list to build it so it can be used in further programs. Okay, the next part of this is going to be the constructor heading definition. So when you zoom in and look at this will be at the top of the answer pages usually, and it'll give you kind of some clues on how it should be used. Again, the first thing you'll want to look at is the description. A good tip for this is these descriptions are a lot of times shorter than reading the instructions. So if you're not quite sure what the paragraph we read in the instructions were, kind of read this and it'll kind of give you an overview. So it's going to construct a digit object that represents num. Also, watch these preconditions and postconditions carefully. This says the num is greater than or equal to 0. Okay, so it's going to be a positive number, but also it includes 0. So we're going to come back to that later, but anytime it includes 0, be cautious. Okay, the next thing that's important is that a parameter is included. The parameter is going to be given to us through the num. It's going to be an integer, so we're going to be expected to use the num variable in our answer implementation. Okay, before you start going to look at the FRQ to develop your answer, let's take a look at what a single digit extraction algorithm is going to do. Okay, so when we read the instructions, essentially it's taking a number and then it's going to extract it digit by digit. Okay, so when you look at this algorithm, let's say we start out with the number 15704, and what we want to do is just extract each individual number. Well, one thing you can do is divide it by 10 and look for the remainder. So when we look at 15704 divided by 10, the remainder there is 4. Okay, so we were able to successfully extract one digit there. But if we were to divide it by 100 the next time, the remainder would be 04, and then we would continue to have these fragments of values and not actually having digits. So we want to shift it. One way that you can successfully shift it is just dividing it by 10. Remember, when you divide an integer by an integer, it's just going to shave off that one last spot. So when we have 15704 divided by 10, it actually leaves us with 1570. Now we can take 1570 and find the remainder when we divide it by 10, and the remainder there is 0. So again, it's another single digit, so this works perfect. We'll continue the process by dividing it by 10 to get to 157, and then we'll get the remainder to get to 7, and you can kind of see how it goes throughout here. One thing I want you to notice at the very end when the num divides by 10, the last number 1, 1 divided by 10 is actually 0. So that's going to be where we need to stop. So consider that when you're creating your loop. Once it gets to 0, it's time to call it there. Okay, talking about the loop there, when you look at the patterns, again, you should see something happening over and over and over. So if you were thinking, man, this would be perfect to use in a loop, you're absolutely right. Okay, the next thing you have to ask yourself is what type of loop. If we have a smaller number, then it won't loop quite as often. If we have a larger number, then it will loop more. Okay, so that uncertainty might mean that we need a while loop. Okay, I hope that helps. Go ahead and try to complete the FRQ for number A or letter A, and we'll check back in a minute.